most recent financial year, with a month's worth of arrivals still to be counted in the final tally. Even with the month of data pending from July last year to May of this year, net migration was just below 450,000. So that's well above the government's commitment. For more on this, let's bring in Shadow Immigration Minister Dan Tehan. Dan, thank you for your time. This analysis has been put together by the Institute of Public Affairs, and it shows we're adding a new migrant every single minute. So for all the rhetoric, Labor's clearly not serious about getting these numbers down.
No, they're not, Peter. And the other fact that's there for all to see is from January to May of this calendar year, the net overseas migration was the highest on record for the first 5 months of any calendar year. So they keep breaking records, even though they're saying they're trying to put a stop on things. And as you know, the deep, deep concern about all this is we're in the middle of a housing crisis and a rental crisis, and they're just not focusing on that. Instead, all they seem to be doing is be quite happy to say, oh, we're trying to slow migration while letting the numbers just get bigger and bigger.
Yeah, and you know, they're not focused on the things they say they're going to do, but they're opening up a can of worms in other areas. We've got farmers up in arms about proposed changes that they're going to bring in to a long-established visa scheme that incentivises backpayers to get out into the regions and look for work. I mean, you represent a rural seat, Dan. What's going on here?
Well, backpackers are obviously incredibly important to make sure that we can continue to harvest fruit, to pick vegetables, to work in abattoirs, to work on farms, dairy farms. Incredibly important. And it's one of the reasons why, of course, when we were in government, we also wanted to have a specific agriculture visa so that we could make sure that fitted in with the backpacker visa as well. The government obviously scrapped the agriculture visa. So in these really important areas where we have workforce shortages, we're not seeing the people that we need. And this is the great tragedy about what the government has been doing. We've seen record levels of net overseas migration, yet we still have these skill shortages. And people just say to me, what are all these people doing and where are they all going? Because skill shortages continue, yet the numbers are at record levels. And we've got, of course, nowhere to house them. We've got a rental crisis. Reserve Bank is very, very worried that they're adding to inflation, and yet the government just cannot take its foot off bringing more and more migrants into this country.
Look, you've been around politics for quite a while. Are you like all of these Labor politicians, the Prime Minister and Tony Burke, who say that the first they've ever heard of dodgy allegations against the CFMEU of claims of criminality and corruption was just in recent days, that this is all a surprise?
Well, I'm a Victorian, Peter, and I've seen for a very long time how the CFMEU operate, and we've known about it. The government has to have known about it. The Premier of Victoria has to have known about it because she's been heavily involved in one way or another with construction in this state for over a decade. Of course, Anthony Albanese knew about it. He was warned by an organisation that had to deal with the CFMEU in a letter that went to his office. So for him to say now, oh, we knew nothing about this, they abolished the Australian Building and Construction Commission, which was about having a cop on the beat in our construction industry. And we warned them then when they did this, that this would be the consequence of it, but they turned a blind eye. I mean, they know that this is what the CFMEU have been doing, and now that it's been literally a light shone on it in this way, for them to come out and say now that they had no idea, it is just completely and utterly dishonest.